everybody, Ghost Girl 007 here, and welcome to Spectacular Halloween 2021. See you in a few. Just kidding. What's up, everybody? Ghost Girl 007 here. Today's video is going to be Haunted Reads. For now, we are reading I Am Haunted, Living Life Through the Dead by Zach Bagans. Right now, we are on page 195, chapter 26. Location Disappointments. Not every haunted place turns out to be a paranormal hotspot. I hate letdowns, but some of the locations we investigate just don't turn up any good evidence. Keep in mind that that's just because we don't turn up any evidence during our investigation doesn't mean that the place isn't haunted or that there's no activity there. It just means that we weren't able to capture any on that particular night. Still, I consider it a personal failure because it's my job to entice the spirits to make contact with us. It's my role to research what happened at a location and find out what makes the spirits trapped there want to be heard or seen, and then use the knowledge to bring them out. Otherwise, I'm just a chump, walking around in the dark, asking silly questions. The most disappointing location we've filmed for Ghost Adventures was probably the Gribble House warehouse in Savannah, Georgia, the Excalibur nightclub in Chicago, and the jail at Cripple Creek in Colorado were also disappointments. But the Gribble House warehouse was the pits. There's a fine line between a truly haunted location and a location that's being sensationalized by a tour company, and I got a lesson in the two on that trip. Now, I'm not saying for certain that this is the case at the Gribble House, but there was something fishy going on down south. A local tour company was touting the location as the Gribble House Paranormal Experience, which should have raised red flags in my mind. I'm not against companies teaching the public how to ghost hunt and leading them into certain areas to give them a true paranormal experience. I'm all for it. In fact, so I can speak negatively about the practice, but I do think it's being sensationalized there. The real Gribble House is gone. It was a private residence that was built in the early 20th century, and 3 women were murdered there in 1909. The house was torn down in 1940, and now there's just a warehouse where the Gribble House used to sit. It's new and clean and didn't feel anything like the places I'm used to investigating. Where the Gribble House once stood, supplies are now stored, and to me it felt like I was walking around a Sam's Club. There are walls within the warehouse that separate a storage area, and the tour operator says that area is about the same square footage as the old Gribble House, and claims that the company has detected a lot of paranormal activity there. Sorry, but I don't buy it. I think land has something to do with, that's the dog if you're wondering, something to do with paranormal activity by structures play a large role in hauntings. Walls, floors, ceilings, bricks and mortar, store more paranormal energy than the land itself does. Sacred Indian lands, burial grounds, mines, and tunnels can hold onto spiritual energy, but an open field where a house once stood is hard to believe as paranormal. Think about the stone tape theory, which says that certain natural materials can store supercharged emotional events and play them back like a cassette tape, the right conditions. More on that in chapter 14, Carrying Spirits. The Gribble house is gone, so none of the materials that were present during the murders are there anymore. Where the house once stood is just a spot in a warehouse. When we were there doing interviews, I felt like the people who lived and worked there were hammering it up for the cameras and their own tour group. It's an interesting story, and I give them mad props for telling the tale of what happened there. But as far as hauntings go, I was not convinced then, and I'm not convinced now. During the Gripple House tour, people are given information that I believe feeds into the psyche and leads them to think that paranormal events are happening when they are not. They're told things like, people in this room feel their neck being squeezed, and over here where the house was, we hear women screaming, and over here where the slave quarters were, African Americans feel uncomfortable. When the tourists who are not professional paranormal investigators are told these things during a haunted tour, they are taking to get a spook or a thrill. They're going to experience those things whether they really happen or not. They're being programmed to hear or feel them, and they think they do. It's metalism. Stop doing that, Kinu. 101. That's the dog. When I was filming an episode of Paranormal Challenge, we did an experiment with the publisher of Skeptic magazine, who is not a believer. Shocking. He took a couple of groups on the show around the Linda Vista Hospital and gave them different pieces of false information in the same rooms. He told the first group that in a particular room there was a spirit of an old man that liked to poke people in the head, and told another group that in the same room a young girl had died and would put her hand in your hand. Sure enough, someone in the first group felt a poke in the head, even though that evidence was patiently false. It's only way to show how the mind can be tricked or even programmed. The Gribble House warehouse felt like this to me, and though it's not necessarily fraudulent, it's specific at best, telling the story of what happened there in a fantastical way just establishes the conditions for people to have the experiences you want them to have. That's why professional paranormal investigators have to go into a location with a completely open mind and no preconceived notions. This isn't the same as not doing research, though we always research our locations, but we don't let the research fool us into thinking that we've captured something paranormal when we really haven't. That would ruin our credibility, which is a critical part of our standing in this field.
Angel, could I take Tyson or right now?
Yeah. Debunking, if you don't do it right, then you're just a scam artist. So we're going to go to the next page. This is page 27. Well, actually it's page 199, and it's chapter 27. If you don't do it right, then you're just a scam artist. Paranormal investigators are a lot more skeptical than you might think, but we focus our skepticism on ourselves rather than on the ghosts. We know they're there, but that doesn't mean every little bump in the night is paranormal, unless it's been thoroughly to debunk and there is no other possible conclusion. Debunking is the act of providing something false, and it's a critical part of every paranormal investigation. To be considered a professional paranormal investigator, you have to go the extra mile to debunk what may or may not be a piece of paranormal evidence. There's so much skepticism surrounding the paranormal that every possible measure has to be taken to remove as many variables as possible and ensure the integrity of the evidence. The measure of any good investigator is not only how he investigates the unknown, but also how he explains the explainable. You have to be willing to take the time to prove that a weird event could be totally natural. Being able to do that shapes you into a good paranormal investigator and strengthens your evidence when a door slams or you hear a voice or see an apparition. You can't just assume that it's paranormal. Debunking means asking the hard questions. Where could the sound or vision have come from? Is there anything else it could be? And 100 more questions until there's no doubt in your mind that it's truly paranormal. Frequently, new teams we meet present us with evidence they've captured, but I've never assumed that it's paranormal until I've thoroughly examined it myself. While investigating Thornhaven Manor in Indiana, for example, we met a Ghost Adventures affiliate team who were certain they'd capture the voice of a woman screaming on a digital recorder. It definitely sounded like a woman screaming for her life, but after those folks left and before we started filming, I decided to investigate this scream. I sent Nick inside the house with a camera, and I stayed outside to determine whether we could find any kind of contamination to explain the reoccurring sound. A lot of famous haunted locations have this kind of phenomenon, a recurring event, like a woman in white walking along a balcony that attracts visitors but is really just reflection of light. I wanted to make sure that this wasn't the case at the Thornhill Manor. My hunch was right. As I stood outside, a neighbor drove his old car past the house, and sure enough, as he stepped on the brakes, it made a screeching sound that sounded exactly like what I've heard on the digital recorder. Immediately, Nick called me on the radio and said that he'd heard a woman screaming inside the house. I was like, I think this is debunked, brother. And it was Jay Wasley replaying the audio of both events and compared the waveforms, and they matched. There was no doubt that the scream was actually the neighbor's car brakes, which we presented on to the owner of the house and the team. But don't get me wrong, this is a good team that does great work, but this one piece of evidence wasn't debunked properly. Fun fact: while filming Paranormal Challenge, I worked with the best paranormal experts and we came up with the high standards for debunking evidence. Teams who debunk properly scored more points with the judges because debunking is often more important than capturing evidence. Titles like Most Haunted Home in America always raise a red flag for me. People who come up with titles like this or with lists of the most haunted locations often take evidence into account that hasn't been debunked. So the claims of most haunted are usually exaggerated because a lot of the events that people capture there are actually explainable. I'm okay with calling a place super duper haunted if it really is, like if it has verified deaths or legitimate demon attacks associated with it, but I get irritated with places that lure tourists by bragging about how haunted they are when they really just have squeaky floors and loose air vents. The Waverly House in San Antonio is legitimately haunted, but we were able to debunk a big part of when we did our investigation there. In the 1850s, Thomas Whaley built the house on the site of a gallows where a lot of people were hanged, including a man named Yankee Jim Robertson. Whaley probably cursed himself by putting his house there, but people do strange things. It's said that the house is haunted by Yankee Jim and others killed on the site. But there's more. Whaley's daughter committed suicide in the house, and there have been documented incidences of police officers being strangled by unseen forces in the house. Many of the hauntings that the Whaley experienced were documented, and there are a lot of reports of dark energy, so all of the necessary elements were in place for an investigation. Were in place for a great investigation. We heard a lot of reports about a woman crying on the main staircase, so we focused our attention there one night. We were setting up a laser microphone experiment with Bill Chappell when Nick stepped on a stair and we all heard the sound of a woman singing or crying, but then it happened again when Nick stepped on the same stair, which made me think that it wasn't paranormal. After following the boards through the wall and down the hall, we discovered a domino effect. One board would rub against another and make the sound. It wasn't paranormal at all. It was just a loose board that was connected to another loose board, and when pressure was applied to it, like Nick stepping on it, it made a strange noise that could easily be mistaken for a woman's voice. Debunked. To gain the maintained credibility and respect, you have to dismiss false positives at every opportunity. The worst part of not debunking information is that it can build up and become an urban legend. If one person or team doesn't debunk an event, then the next team goes in looking for the particular event to happen. And in snowballs, eventually you end up creating a ghost where there isn't one. Or worse, a ghost that becomes false history that does a disservice to the location and the people who live or work there. Paranormal investigators should preserve the integrity of a haunted location, not desecrate it. I'm always asked why we investigate at night. Don't ghosts come out during the day, Zach? Of course they do, but our chances of catching them are a lot higher at night. One of the biggest reasons we investigate at night is that the world is a quieter place after dark. There's less possibilities of noise contamination from cars, humans, animals, technology, unicorns, and heat. I say unicorns. Whatever light contaminates is also a problem during the day because the sun cast shadows that can be mistaken for spirits or basic movement. When there aren't any presence, and special equipment like infrared and full spectrum cameras that frequently capture either real evidence like mist and apparitions don't work as well during the day. So there are plenty of reasons why paranormal investigators are nocturnal creatures. We were investigating a haunted bed and breakfast in Charleston, South Carolina, and showed a third-party investigator why we work at night. We did an investigation during the day, equipped with a full spectrum camera and a regular camera, and it was easy to see the shadows wreaking havoc all over the film. They were everywhere, and the sunlight caused many different visual distortions in videos and digital still photos. The background noise levels were much higher too, so just getting a basic EVP was a chore. But the biggest reason we work at night is so that we can use infrared light. If you know anything about the light spectrum, you know that the amount of light humans can see with the naked eye is very small. We can't see ultraviolet or infrared light, but since we're smarter than the average ape, we've developed the technology to help us see beyond that is normally visible to us. Why this is important? Many people, myself included, feel that spirits reside in the infrared and or ultraviolet spectrum, or at least can be eliminated by these forms of light. Night vision cameras shoot in infrared and apply existing ambient light, so they have the capacity to see things we can't see with the naked eye. I believe that the infrared light can eliminate a ghost's composition, an orb, a mist, a vapor, or an ectoplasm under the right conditions, so I use this equipment often. I thoroughly investigate the Portland Underground, which is an active place during the day, but is not the same as working at night. Like people, the paranormal activity down there is vastly different after the sun goes down, and all of it has to be debunked. So if you like videos like this, then like and subscribe to my channel and comment in the comments below. Until next time, everybody, sweet nightmares, or should I say to all a good night. And welcome to Spectacular October.